Today I'm talking to Eli. Eli is a lifelong entrepreneur and currently serves as the CEO of Profit Lab, a strategic finance bookkeeping and accounting firm for agencies, and Servigate, a SaaS tool that helps business owners automatically capture objective client feedback. It's pretty interesting. And on top of that, he also owns a small portfolio of service businesses, including Not Boring Design, a design and creative agency technology company for technology companies, and Matter Made, a B2B performance marketing agency for technology companies. And he's on a mission, overall mission, to help agencies run more profitable businesses so that they can live the life they've always dreamed of. Eli, welcome to the pod.
Raul, thanks for having me, man.
Dude, so there has to be like some sort of either, well, what's your why? An overarching why to do all these things. Like you got five things going on at once. What's the why? What's the big storyline?
Yeah. So yeah, my why. I when I was 28, I had this epiphany where I wanted to shift from chasing this big kind of egoic goal of taking a company public, and instead wanted to create a lifestyle. And my why became, we call it the Tricycle life, which was this vision of chasing my kids down a tree-lined street, middle of the week, middle of the workday, not worrying about work at all. Um, and that became my focus, was unlocking that lifestyle, and setting my family up to be able to live in a, ideally like a fairly carefree way, enabled by these businesses. And so I started my first agency. That became like the logical shift for me. It was okay, I don't need to start a product company. That sounds like a lot of stress. For some silly reason, I thought agencies would be less stressful. Turns out they've got their own form of stress. It's called clients. Um, but yeah, so long story short, started Mattermade, which is a performance marketing agency for B2B technology companies in 2019. That business grew really quickly. We produced a little over $7 million in net profit in the first 3 years. And then I started a second agency, because I'm a glutton for punishment, called No Boring Design. No Boring Design is a creative and design studio for technology companies. We do everything from like brand and marketing, design, and the two businesses, since 2019, have produced a little over $10 million in net profit now. And then again, doubling down on my desire for pain and punishment, I started a third agency this year called Profit Labs, as you mentioned. And Profit Labs is, I think, my true baby. Like the first two agencies, I wasn't a marketer. I started a marketing agency. I wasn't a designer. I started a design agency. And with Profit Labs, it's bringing together all of the hard learned lessons, all of the pain that I went through with those other two agencies in, not having financial clarity, in not feeling like I had my arms wrapped around the business, and at times in not having them be as profitable as I wanted them to be, and then eventually breaking through
Mm-hmm.
those doors. Um, and I realized that there wasn't a good financial partner out there for agency owners. A lot of you go out, you find a bookkeeper, you find a fractional CFO. A lot of the times they're servicing SMBs in general, right? They work with the baker down the
Mm-hmm.
street, the car shop, and also you, the agency owner. Um, and so they don't have deep domain expertise, and they can't understand like what levers they should be helping you think through and pull. And so with Profit Labs, I sought to solve that, where we're giving people a full fractional finance department, everything from CFO all the way down to bookkeeping, for the price of less than a full time employee, all with deep domain expertise and under one roof. So it's something I'm
Pretty
really
cool.
passionate about.
Yeah, I mean, being in the agency world and growing up there, like, there's such a nuance of how you look at labor expenses, revenue, profit, and like OpEx. You are correct. It is underserved in that way because it's not just your typical accounting like everything else might be. I'm pretty curious because you said something really important in the beginning that a lot of people don't. There's two dichotomies that you mentioned, and I think it stems from, well, there's one dichotomy, two major points. The one dichotomy is that you're either building a lifestyle business or you're not. And sometimes there's shame or like looking down upon if you're building a lifestyle business. But I think you transcended that through, I'm just going to call it like ego death. Like you went through something where you saw what you actually wanted, didn't care what the ego thought about. Can you briefly talk about that? Because I think that's really important for founders to consider, especially you learned this pretty early at 28. Some people will hit their 40s or 50s and don't learn it. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that was a really hard transition for me to make. When I described it, I made it sound cut and dry, but the reality was, I I came up in the VC-backed startup world, and I
Yeah.
thought down on agency owners. I thought, basically anybody who is like a service provider. My mind was like, oh, that's cute. Like you're doing that cute little silly thing on the side.
Hmm.
You like, and I thought less of people who were doing that type of work because I was a, brash, egoic 20-year-old who thought I was gonna, build something amazing and would be remembered and whatever the hell else I thought was important at the time. Um,
Hmm.
and so, yeah, when I made that shift, I honestly struggled with that for even the first few years that I was running the marketing agency Mattermade. I still had these like negative thoughts about what I was doing, and I felt like I had sold out. And um,
Hmm.
it took a while before I realized once the profit started rolling in, suddenly I was like, wait a minute, I just spent the last however many years grinding, trying to like get my startup off the ground, and I raised all this money and did all these things, and like at the end of the day, I was paying myself like $50,000 a year while I was running that thing, at least initially, and
Hmm.
like we exited for what by Silicon Valley standards would be a total failure, and we sold the business for $3 million. I took home 1.2 of that, and like in our peak year at Profit Labs, that business generated $4.2 million in EBITDA in a single year. So I was just like, what,
Hmm.
why have I been wasting my time? Like, and not even about time. It was just like, oh, there are multiple ways to skin the cat. And it doesn't,
Little
and
path. Yeah.
one of them isn't more right or wrong than the other. It's just a different vibe. So, yeah,
Interesting. So a lot of the beliefs were around just practical experiences of what it takes, like energy in, energy out, or like the outputs.
exactly. Yeah.
That's good. When you're running these many companies and you're thinking about like how you're servicing, what are some of your non-negotiables, like across the board?
Non-negotiables. I'm pretty strict with my time blocking. Um, until very recently, I hadn't worked more than 25 hours a week in probably the last like 3 years. Um, Now that I have started this new agency and also have this SaaS experiment on the side, I'm definitely working more than 25 hours a week, but not by a whole lot. Like maybe I'm working 30, 30, maybe touching 30
Hmm.
on like really busy week, but probably not. Um, so for me, it's like the businesses have to conform to my family's life and like what I need personally, which kind of is
Mm.
which is another non-negotiable. Is like I need to be able to take care of myself mentally and physically. For me,
Mm.
actually, now's a really interesting time to talk about this because normally I'm incredibly vigilant about like my gym schedule and my training for endurance events, and I always have some sort of milestone that I'm chasing after. And for the first time in a really long time, years, I've like fallen off the wagon. Like the last couple of it's been 3 weeks now. I was never a runner. I always thought running was silly. It's
Hmm.
like hurts your knees, whatever. And then I spent some time up in the mountains in Colorado this summer, and was like, oh, trail running looks like it would be a fun thing to try. So I picked up trail running, and then 3 months later, maybe 2.5 months later, 3 months later, I ran an ultra marathon. Um, and that was a couple weeks ago. And so I like ever since that race, I
Dang.
was like, ugh, I don't feel like doing anything. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just went off on a tangent, but point is,
No, this is good. This is good. That's interesting.
yeah, like point is taking care of the body, and like I think that that is a really good daily reminder of you can handle hard things, you can do hard things, you can push through hard
Yeah.
things, and it kind of conditions the mind so that when you encounter hard things in a work environment or with the agencies, you're just like, oh, this is just another hard thing, and I'm going to push through it. Uh,
She's just pretty calm about it. Yeah.
exactly. So I'd say those are my two kind of biggest non-negotiables.
I think there's similarities in some of the things that we do. For the do you always need that milestone? Like, and this parallels into business as well, but like for the fitness side, do you always think like I need to sign up for that 50 miler, or I need to have this half Ironman, or I need to do this thing? Like, do you always need that as the thing, or are you now focused more on the process?
With endurance sports, I do. I like to have some sort of kind of big, hairy goal. Like 2 years ago, I was training for the Leadville 100 mountain bike race. I
Nice.
ended up getting a pretty massive concussion like 3 weeks before the race start. And so after a year of training,
Oh
I
my
actually
God.
missed the race, but I put in all of the work. And so I still feel good about it. But I like having some sort of big kind of audacious goal for endurance sports, just because in training for endurance sports, as I'm sure you know, it's a slog. Like you're just logging tons of long, boring hours doing whatever it is that you're doing. Um, and it's not like exciting or glamorous. And so there's got to be something that you're like holding, that at least for me, I need
Moving towards.
onto. Yeah, hold on to. Um, for lifting weights and like the gym, I don't. It's just the process. I just like showing up and the feeling of the routine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not as easier to compete there. So how do you translate that into like the business world? Like what do you do with your companies when you look at like the financial architecture to like your earlier agency? I think you mentioned online that you were the bottleneck. So like were there milestones that you looked at? Was it mostly how do I improve process? Was your profit a output of focusing on process, or were there intentional milestones that you set?
Yeah, definitely intentional milestones. I focus on two things whenever I'm starting a business. Number one being like how quickly can I grow our profit to the numbers that I've set, like my goals. And I can give some specific examples in a second. And then the other is how quickly can I remove myself from the business, at least
Hmm.
operationally. Um, and I think those two skills have kind of become my superpower. Is really quickly figuring out like who's smarter than me that can be doing the things that I'm doing, because I don't want to be the smartest person in the room, nor do I expect that like I'm the best at any one category. I'm a generalist, so I'm really good at getting a lot of stuff done really quickly and kind of teeing things up. But then once it's time to go deep, like that's not me, and I know that about
Hmm.
myself. So very quickly finding the right players, inspiring them to join the team, setting them up with the resources they need to be successful, and then like setting them free and letting them do their thing has served me really well across all of my agencies. And I've it's taken time to like get better at that over the years, but
Yeah, yeah.
generally that's been a focus. And then as far as goals are concerned, I always start with profit goals. I don't give a shit about revenue. I like to say, you can't buy a house with revenue. You can't buy, uh,
Yeah.
your family.
Depends which banker you talk to.
Exactly.
But you're right.
And so yeah, like when I started Mattermade, I remember my goal was like, again, I was 28, I didn't have kids yet. And I was like, man, if this business could produce $40,000 a month in profit, like I don't even know what I would do with that much money. Like I would just like that would be insane. And so I was like, let's make that the goal. um, and we hit that goal in like 6 months, the first 6 months of doing business. And then I was like, I thought I would stop. I'm like, oh, this is all about the tricycle life, and I would just like stop at the 40. Um, and then I was like, wait a minute, if I can get here in 6 months, like, could I double that? Um,
Yeah.
and so I just got really addicted to the kind of like gamification of, well, what if we push to another milestone, another milestone? Um, so yeah, I do like milestones.
Yeah, no, I think it's good key to break it down. It's just interesting parallels. Again, two different pieces. Some people focus on outcome only and disregard their journey. Others just focus on the journey and the outcome as a byproduct. So it's good to hear that, especially when I'm speaking with some leaders or those who mentor other leaders. It's interesting to hear how a lot of people think, and it's good to hear what you're focusing essentially your purpose, your essence, and how you structure the way that you work, so that you can go ahead and meet those milestones, but also in alignment with how you like to achieve your goals. Um, there's an interesting notion that agency thinks that they're growing, like most businesses, but agencies here in focus, their bank account is growing, but their profit may not be. Tell me a little bit more about what you mean by profit dies in the shadows. What does that mean, and what are some of the killers with profit?
Oh man, I'm so glad you opened this can of worms. uh, so there's this thing that happens when you're running an agency, and you'll probably relate to this, or listeners will probably relate to this. I've called it the agency cycle of sadness. And if you've been in the agency game long enough, this will resonate. It starts off where you're excited, you're growing revenue, you start hiring some people, the agency's profitable, and then the excitement peaks, and at some point, uh, you have some clients churn, and then your pipeline slows down, and suddenly you're overstaffed, and then the profit goes away or diminishes, and then you're at some point faced with layoffs or reduction in force, whatever you want to call it. Um, and then the agency's like kind of profitable again. And then suddenly your pipeline gets strong and healthy and you're growing again and it's exciting. And then suddenly you're understaffed. And the cycle just repeats itself over the years, on repeat. And sometimes you have multiple years where you're just like cruising up and to the right and everything's gravy. But eventually something happens. It could be
Hmm.
macro in the market. It could be something just specific to your industry. But it takes people on this like journey of whiplash, ping ponging between overstaffed and understaffed, profitable and not profitable. And when you're ping ponging between these stages and just caught up in agency life, like agencies are inherently stressful environments. There's always fires, clients being clients, or you're in the business of employing people, and people are people, and that has its own set of
They're fascinating.
complications, right? Exactly.
Uh,
And so their point is there's always a fire to put out, and when there's always a fire to
mhm.
put out, what ends up happening is a lot of the times the leader or the leadership team focuses on those problems and solving those problems, and they end up taking their eye off the ball of the key metrics that ultimately are leading indicators for profitability, or even lagging indicators for profitability. And they just don't feel like they have enough time to focus on that. And so when I say profitability dies in the shadows, it's when you take your eye off that ball
Mm,
and you don't have a leadership team that's um, rallied around those key metrics on a weekly basis. Like it really needs to be time and time
yeah.
again. I think there's a saying like whatever you measure. I don't remember the actual saying, but it has something to do with like if you track stuff. And
Yeah, inspecting, you expect, inspect, and also you measure gets better over time.
exactly,
Uh,
exactly. And just a lot of agencies don't have that muscle, or they haven't yet gotten to a place where they're comfortable sharing those metrics with the leadership team, which I think is another really big um, mistake.
it's crazy.
And
Yeah.
and candidly, this took me a really long time to get comfortable with myself. I was not open book um, with my
Mm,
leadership team for a number of years, and then eventually I was just like, what do I don't really have anything to lose, and I have a lot to gain by giving the leadership team, empowering them to know the full financial picture and let them own specific metrics. And that's been a real game changer. I
yeah.
eventually I got over it and was just like, if people freak out or like don't like how much money the owner of the agency is making, then they're just not meant for this team. Like the right person,
Or in business in general.
yeah, or
Yeah.
business in general. Like the right person is going to be inspired by that
Yeah.
and feel like they're working in a great company, as long as their compensation is fair and growing. Um, but the energy that you get and the way that you can get people to think like owners when you give them full
Yeah.
P&L visibility is really powerful.
Yeah. And I would pair that too with like education with relationship of what money is. It's an equation of value. So if they want to make more, just how do you add more value to the agency?
Totally.
So there's interesting notions that I've come across, or just like what I've done. I haven't found very many ways to decouple overhead expenses from revenue, because usually when revenue goes up, you like you mentioned, you hire, OpEx goes up, and then they kind of marry each other. They're riding the same wave. Depending if you're doing contractor, W-2, outsource agency, you could with AI some, not too much, but you could decouple. How have you found to, if you want to share, decouple OpEx from revenue to increase margins?
Yeah. When I'm thinking about this, I'm typically thinking about, you've got your revenue and you have your cost of sale. Cost of sale of being any people that are, or other things that are required in order to service the clients. Um, Typically, the cost of sale is always, and some people will call it COGS, but um, it's always coupled, as you mentioned, with, with the revenue. The problem is not actually that it's coupled with, like, it's not actually trying to decouple it. The problem is that
Hmm.
most agencies, their revenue will dip and they'll hold the same cost of sale team,
Okay.
right? So like they would theoretically be coupled perfectly, and that would be fine because presumably when agency owners are making their business, they've modeled it out. So it's like, okay, we have healthy gross margin so long as the team is the appropriate size for the revenue that we have. Um, but most people don't have the discipline, or really struggle, and it sucks. Like, you're talking about people's jobs when like this discussion
Yeah, it's real life.
invariably is uncomfortable because it's all about, like, if revenue goes down and you want to be profitable, you need to let people go, because the business can
Yeah.
no longer support that. And not everybody, A, wants to run that type of business, or B, has the stomach to run that type of business. And depending on the size of the company, they might not have the leadership team that can run that playbook. And so a lot of the times they'll just hold on to the same level of talent, even though their profit is 30% lower than it was when they staffed up. And so then they're scratching their head wondering, why, we're bringing in all this money. Like, why isn't my business profitable? And the answer is, like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Period.
Yeah, that's it's always a tough discussion. The only way that I found it was when you'd have your set of contractors or team members, and it would be flex pay like a base, and then depending on the number of clients that they managed at a certain time, it would increase based on that. Obviously, that creates invariability in their pay, so it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
But when the business is doing well, the team's doing well. So that's the only way that I found it to have consistency with team members. But you do have to have the right kind of person in there who's willing to co-share that risk.
Yeah, and I've come up with, like, a simple formula that I like to use generally. It's a back of the napkin type of thing where, if the team utilization drops below 75% for more than 3 consecutive months, then you cut the bottom performers and you cut enough of them until the business is back to 85, 90% utilization. That way
Mm.
you're not knee jerk reacting if revenue drops for a month or two. Like, you as the business owner are going to absorb those losses, and that's just going to be part of being a business owner. But if it's
Mhm.
enough of a trend line that it's been 3 months straight of being below 75% utilization, then you're just avoiding a hard decision that really needs to be made. And the right thing to
Yeah.
do is to evaluate the team. I like to use the 9 box method of, performance evaluation and like capabilities evaluation, and then pick the players who are the lowest performers on that chart, remove them, and get us back up to a healthy place.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned that you have like a multi-channel flow chart, like an ops system for how you grow agencies. What are some of like the basic structure that you look at to grow agencies?
So the first thing I do, like my playbook for growing agencies, first thing I do is I start with a profit model. And that's where we already touched on this earlier a little bit, where I'll set a profit goal and then I'll reverse engineer everything from there. So, like, based on this profit goal and based on what we're trying to do, what team can we afford? And what does that look like? And what OpEx are we expecting to incur? And I break that up into 3 distinct phases of growth. The first phase I call proof of concept. This is like, between 0 and 10, maybe 15 clients, where you're still proving that the business can generate clients, close business, and that you can service that business, and that everything works the way that you've hypothesized that it will. So you've got the proof of concept phase, and in that I allocate a certain amount of OpEx, and then usually I just use placeholders. So it'll be like, okay, we're going to spend $3,000 a month on advertising in the proof of concept phase, and we're going to spend 2,500 a month on an EA or something like that in the proof of concept phase. So anyway, I've got like kind of my standard set, and I actually have a template for this that I give away for free because I'm passionate about it and I think it's helpful. That it
Mhm.
walks people through this whole model. Then the second phase is like, okay, now it's time to grow. Let's like prove that we can spend money to grow the business. And then the third phase is we've proven that we can spend money to grow the business. Now we need to like flood the business with investment so that it grows even faster. And that third phase also comes along with maturing the leadership team. So that's usually when you're starting to introduce like director level people
Mm.
and adding on a layer of management, because at that point, depending on the average selling price for retainers or however you're charging, the business might have 75 clients at this point, and it really needs like more oversight, and the teams are starting to get larger.
Yeah.
So I start by filling this out, and then I go back time and time again to the same watering holes as far as I'm looking for who are the influencers in the space that people trust, and then I'm going to them and trying to figure out if I can offer them something that I do, some of my services, whatever the agency offers, for free in exchange for, hey, like I'm not asking you to post about it, but um, if you appreciate the work and the work is high quality, then I'm imagining you'd probably be interested in sharing it with your audience. That play has always served me super super well.
Mhm.
I built No Boring Design, the design agency, on that play alone. I also go to cold email.
Because the work speaks for itself. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And like we found one influencer who has 160,000 followers. They're all marketers. Dave Gerhardt from Exit 5. We redid Exit 5's brand, and poof, like we generated multiple millions of dollars
Nice.
in closed won deals over the next 6 months because of that free work that we did. And the free work probably cost us 30 grand internally.
Yeah. No, the return is incredible.
Yeah. So influencer playbook, cold email still works. It doesn't work as well as it used to, but it still works. Um, and then founder brand. I'm a big believer in founder brand. I think today LinkedIn is, my number one source for new business. If I look through the Slack channel where I get notifications of what people set, like we have first party attribution. They say, hey, like I found you through this, and it's time and time again, organic social LinkedIn,
Mhm.
or referral. But I actually don't like referral as a primary lead source, because it means like you can't control referrals. You can just keep doing good work and hope that more of
Yeah.
them come, but founder brand, I can control. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Pretty sweet, man. We'll put that link too to the resource in the show notes.
perfect.
Right on, man. Well, hey, so for all of our listeners out there to get more of Eli, where should people go? LinkedIn, newsletter? Where do you want people
Yeah,
to head
LinkedIn's
over
the
to?
best spot. Eli Rubel on LinkedIn. I also have a weekly newsletter called the Profit Forecast, where I share super actionable strategies and tactics for agency owners and agency leadership teams to make their agency more profitable, and give them greater financial clarity. So I'd say find me on LinkedIn, add me there, and then check out the Profit Forecast newsletter if you're interested in that type of stuff too.
Sweet, man. We'll put those links in the show notes. Thanks again for being on.
Thanks for having me, Raul. Nice to meet you.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you'd like to get more of these podcasts, please go ahead and subscribe to wherever you're watching or listening to the pod. If you have any suggestions or questions that you want me to answer on the pod, or you have a guest that you want me to interview, please go ahead and email me all of your suggestions and questions at podcast@dogoodwork.io. That's podcast@dogoodwork.io. If you'd like to give me public feedback, you can go on Apple Podcasts, and from there, you can leave up to a 5-star review. I would greatly appreciate that. If you like more free resources where you can get my best strategies to help you increase your company's performance and scale profitably, you can get handpicked articles to propel your growth, and you can get trainings and discussions that I give freely online, as well as low cost resources such as my books and guides. You can get all of that by going to dogoodwork.io/resources. 90% of all of these resources are not behind any email opt-ins. You can get instant access by going to dogoodwork.io/resources. Now, if you'd like to accelerate your progress and shorten the gap between information and action and start seeing results in your business, let's work together to increase your company's performance and scale profitably and serve more clients without the overwhelm. You can request a free clarity call to see how we can best support you to reach your goals by going to dogoodwork.io/apply. Again, that's dogoodwork.io/apply. As always, it's an honor to be a small part in your journey. This is Raul Hernandez. Do good work.